The colonies glimmered like scattered jewels across the spiral arm, their lights a defiance against the darkness of the void. On the orbital station of Helion Prime, humans moved with a careful rhythm, their work monitored by drones that floated silently above, recording, analyzing, judging. The Galactic Council's emblem glowed atop every command hub, a triad of interwoven symbols representing order, supremacy, and control. To the Council, humans were data points, manageable, predictable, controllable. Captain Elara Voss leaned against the viewport of the dauntless horizon, her eyes tracing the orbital rings of Helion Prime. She didn't flinch at the drones above, they were just tools, and tools could be hacked, redirected, or ignored. She sipped her bitter synth coffee, the tang of burnt beans grounding her in a reality the Council could never fully grasp. Humans thrived in chaos, in improvisation. That was their strength. "Captain," Lieutenant Eric said, stepping into the observation room, voice tight with urgency. "Council sensors are picking up unusual readings along Colony Delta. They're monitoring more aggressively. Incoming inspection team scheduled for standard review in 12 hours. Elara didn't flinch. "Then we make it interesting. Delta's not a compliance colony, it's a test bed. Let's see how far the Council can push without realizing humans adapt faster than they predict." Eric frowned, doubt flickering in his eyes. "If they discover what we've been doing." "They will," she interrupted, tone sharp but calm. "But they'll never anticipate how we respond. That's the point." The human colonies were scattered across hostile star systems, each designed for a unique purpose: mining rare elements, cultivating genetically enhanced crops, or testing zero-gravity ecosystems. To the Council, humans were under strict protocols, their every move catalogued. Yet, within those systems, subtle rebellion brewed, encrypted messages between colonies, sabotaged drones, redirected shipments. Small sparks, almost imperceptible, but enough to make the Council uneasy. Elara's fleet, though modest, was strategically positioned. The dauntless Horizon wasn't the fastest ship in the galaxy, nor the most heavily armed, but its human crew had a rare advantage: creativity under pressure. They could improvise maneuvers, anticipate alien logic, and exploit weaknesses in ways the Council's algorithms could not predict. As she spoke with her crew, the communications officer, Tali, chimed in. "Delta reports unusual energy fluctuations. Not weapons fire, not mining activity, almost like experimentation." Elara's lips curled in a faint smile. "Experimentation is exactly what they're doing. Let's make sure the Council interprets it the wrong way." By mid-cycle, the inspection fleet arrived, sleek Council warships, their metallic surfaces reflecting starlight in intimidating perfection. Their AI-controlled weapons systems tracked every movement with relentless precision. To any other species, it would be terrifying. To humans, it was a challenge. "Approaching the outer perimeter," reported Ensign Moore. "They're deploying sensor probes in a spread formation. Standard containment protocol." Elara tapped the viewport. "Form up Delta pattern. Keep them focused on our decoys. Let them waste time on projections." Across Colony Delta, hidden teams of engineers and programmers synchronized their actions with Elara's orders. Drones were redirected, sensor arrays fed false readings, communication lines echoed empty chatter. Every move calculated to create confusion, every pause designed to mimic error, but the humans moved with a precision born from understanding the Council's predictability. On board the Council flagship, High Chancellor Vorian observed the human fleet through a holographic display. His elongated fingers hovered over control glyphs, eyes narrowing as anomalies appeared. "These humans, they should be contained by logic, by discipline. Why are they improvising?" His advisor, a crystalline entity named Shival, trembled slightly. "High Chancellor, it is unusual, but within expected margins. Perhaps this is a coordinated test of Council procedures." Vorian's voice dropped to a low, dangerous murmur. "They are more than predictable. They adapt, they evolve. Prepare reinforcement protocols. Do not underestimate them." Elara watched the holographic feeds of the inspection fleet through her ship's monitors. Their formations were rigid, almost mechanical. Humans are anything but rigid, she muttered. Let's remind them of that. She gestured to her crew. Execute the horizon sweep. It was subtle at first, probe ships misdirected, energy signals bent, sensors feeding false coordinates. Then, the human fleet executed an audacious maneuver, weaving between Council ships with unpredictable arcs, exploiting blind spots the AI could not compensate for. Council commanders on the bridge of their warships scrambled, issuing orders that humans had already anticipated and rendered useless. Captain, Eric shouted, excitement tinged with disbelief, they're recalibrating in real time to our patterns. They don't even realize they're chasing phantoms. Elara's gaze remained steady, unwavering. Good. Let them think they're winning. They never see the humans coming until it's too late. The first skirmish of this psychological war ended without bloodshed, yet it sent ripples across the Council's command hierarchy. High Chancellor Vorian's confidence was shaken, not destroyed, but shaken. Humans were not merely resisting. They were strategizing in ways his species could not fully anticipate. Back on Helion Prime, Colony Delta's citizens celebrated quietly, knowing the Council's attention had been diverted without consequence. Children played in the streets under artificial sunlight, unaware that every clever maneuver, every small act of rebellion, was a thread in a larger tapestry woven by Captain Voss and her fleet. Elara stood on the observation deck once more, eyes scanning the colony lights. She allowed herself a moment of satisfaction, tempered by the knowledge that this was only the beginning. The Council would respond with greater force, their arrogance fueling their actions. But humanity, she thought, had always thrived in the face of insurmountable odds. Soon, she whispered to herself, they'll realize what they've awoken. The first sparks of rebellion had ignited, small but intense. And in the cold vacuum of space, where civilizations clashed and empires rose and fell, humans had begun to reclaim the narrative. They were unpredictable, uncontainable, and utterly unstoppable when united under vision and ingenuity. The Galactic Council had underestimated humans. That mistake, once minor, was now a widening fissure threatening their control. High Chancellor Vorian sat in the luminescent council chamber of the Aurora Nexus, surrounded by advisors and generals, their forms flickering in the iridescent glow of the central holotable. Lines of star systems and human colonies glimmered like constellations on the projection. They adapt faster than our models predict, Vorian admitted, voice measured but tight. Our calculations accounted for minor deviations, not coordinated improvisation across multiple systems. Humans are evolving. Shival's crystalline form trembled. High Chancellor, our fleet is sufficient. We can escalate enforcement, isolate the colonies, and restore order. Vorian's gaze was hard, eyes narrowing. Order? We no longer control them. Our sensors, our fleets, our logic, they all fail against unpredictability. This is no longer a matter of containment, it is a matter of survival. Deploy reinforcement immediately. Every ship capable of engagement must move to the Delta sector within standard warp cycles. Meanwhile, aboard the dauntless Horizon, Elara Voss reviewed intelligence from Colony Delta. Sensor logs, communications chatter, and energy readings painted a detailed picture of the Council's movements. Humans were under pressure, but they were ready. Tali, Elara said, voice calm but commanding, calculate the Council's fleet convergence paths. I want gaps, blind zones, anything exploitable. Eric, ready the diversionary teams. We move at first light. Eric leaned over the console, tracing projected trajectories. They're converging faster than predicted, Captain. But their formation is rigid. They calculate, then act. No improvisation on their part. Exactly, Elara said. Predictable behavior is a vulnerability. Humans excel in the unpredictable. That's our advantage. Across multiple colonies, humans prepared in silence. Supply lines were rerouted, automated drones were reprogrammed, and clandestine communications stitched networks together. The strategy wasn't brute force, it was precision, deception, and exploiting overconfidence. The Council assumed humans could be corralled, but they hadn't accounted for ingenuity born of necessity. The first contact came at dawn. Council warships emerged from warp, a metallic crescent cutting through the darkness of space. Their weapons glimmered, systems humming with lethal intent. On the horizon, Elara watched through the tactical viewport, her jaw tight. "Ready the horizon sweep," she said. "No weapons fire yet. We let them make the first mistake." Minutes later, the Council's fleet began scanning and probing. Their AI expected predictable evasive maneuvers, but humans never repeated patterns. Drones decoyed, sensor signals twisted, and ships maneuvered in arcs that confounded the Council's calculations. On board the Aurora Nexus, Vorian's hands clenched over the control glyphs. Why are they still adapting? Their movements should be confined to standard reaction models. Why is every attempt to predict them failing? A junior officer dared to speak. "High Chancellor, perhaps we misjudged the human capacity for adaptive strategy." Vorian's voice was cold and precise. "Do not speak of possibility. We deal in certainty. Reinforce their perimeter and cut off escape vectors. Leave no path unmonitored." Back on the human side, Elara orchestrated a synchronized maneuver. Delta, Epsilon, Theta align in sweeping formation Alpha. Beta and Gamma execute decoy patterns. Council sensors will lock on our false movements. At my signal, initiate realignment. The humans executed flawlessly. Council ships fired at phantoms, energy beams passing through empty space, while the real fleet slipped through gaps, striking critical communication relays and power nodes with precision. The Council's rigid tactics became liabilities, exposing structural weaknesses that humans exploited with surgical accuracy. Tali's voice, calm but excited, broke through the bridge's hum. "They're recalibrating, but their systems are overloading. Power redirection underway. Multiple nodes offline. Minimal human casualties reported." Elara allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. "Good. Keep them chasing shadows. Make every movement unpredictable, but coordinated. Let them waste resources and time. Every delay strengthens our position." Meanwhile, Vorian's patience eroded. He activated direct communication with the horizon. The holographic envoy shimmered into view, imposing and precise. "Captain Elara Voss," Vorian's voice resonated through the bridge. "Your defiance is noted. Cease these actions immediately, or your colonies will face annihilation. Compliance is your only rational choice." Elara's lips curved into a faint, deliberate smile. "High Chancellor, you underestimate us. Predictability is your trap. We act where logic fears to tread. You don't command humans, you negotiate with them, and even then, carefully. But I'm done negotiating." Vorian's eyes narrowed. "You will regret this hubris. Humans are tools, not threats. I will ensure the Council's might extinguishes this rebellion." "Tools," Elara repeated softly. "Maybe once. Not anymore." The human fleet pressed their advantage. Council ships attempted conventional countermeasures, but the humans anticipated and countered every step. In one bold strike, a coordinated attack disrupted the Aurora Nexus's peripheral sensors, forcing the flagship into defensive maneuvers. Though unarmed for direct conflict, the humans had turned intelligence, adaptability, and daring into weapons far more effective than beams or missiles. On Colony Delta, citizens watched streaks of light cross the night sky. Children, oblivious to the stakes, played beneath artificial auroras, while engineers and strategists recalibrated hidden satellites and comms relays. Every action was precise, deliberate, and deadly to Council assumptions. Vorian retreated briefly to reassess. The humans were not just surviving, they were evolving tactics in real time, learning from every move, every error the Council made. His confidence was faltering, replaced by unease he rarely admitted, even to himself. Elara observed quietly, her mind already planning the next move. "This is only the beginning," she murmured. "They think they understand us. They don't even know the rules have changed." By the time the skirmish ended, the Council's fleet had withdrawn to regroup. Human losses were minimal, morale was high, and the colonies had survived unscathed. For the first time, the Council's invincibility seemed negotiable. Elara turned to her crew. "This proves something important," she said. "Humans are never predictable. They learn, they adapt, and they fight when cornered. That's what they've forgotten about us. And that is our advantage." Across the stars, the humans were no longer merely colonies under watch. They were a growing force, organized yet unpredictable, resilient yet adaptive. They were awakening. And the Council had miscalculated the cost of that awakening. The void trembled under the glow of 1,000 human vessels, each streaking through space with purpose and precision. Captain Elara Voss stood on the bridge of the dauntless horizon, eyes scanning the chaotic ballet of ships and energy pulses. Every movement was deliberate, every ship an extension of human ingenuity. This was no longer a defensive maneuver, it was a strike. "Status report," she demanded, voice cutting through the hum of the bridge. "Tactical arrays are holding, Captain," Tali responded, fingers flying over the console. "Council fleet is attempting standard countermeasures, but their recalibrations are slow. We have blind zones near the outer relay stations, prime for a coordinated strike." Elara's jaw tightened. "Good. Eric, lead strike teams Alpha and Beta through the blind zones. Neutralize their relays, then pivot to the main communication hubs. Minimal exposure, maximum disruption. Make them regret underestimating us." Eric's fingers danced over the command panel. "Understood. Teams Alpha and Beta ready to engage." For decades, the Galactic Council had treated humans like a predictable variable in a controlled experiment. Every order, every protocol, assumed compliance. But humans were a storm, chaotic, relentless, adaptive. And now, that storm was fully unleashed. Vorian watched from the Aurora Nexus, eyes narrowing as human ships executed maneuvers no algorithm had predicted. "Impossible," he muttered, voice tight. "Their coordination, it's beyond comprehension. Alert all units. Intercept before they reach the communication hubs." On the human side, stealth and speed were paramount. Strike teams Alpha and Beta darted through blind spots, exploiting weaknesses in the Council's formation. Energy beams whistled past, striking empty space as humans twisted and turned unpredictably, leaving the Council scrambling. "Alpha team, on my mark," Elara ordered. "Now." The strike teams launched coordinated assaults. Relays flickered, communication lines overloaded, and sensor arrays shut down. Council vessels, once confident in their technological supremacy, floundered in darkness, unable to track the humans' next moves. "Tali, we've got a direct channel to the Nexus," Eric said, urgency in his voice. Elara activated the link. Vorian's holographic form shimmered into view, his expression a mixture of disbelief and rage. "Captain Voss," Vorian spat, voice trembling with authority cracking under strain. "Cease this immediately. You will bring destruction upon your people." Elara's gaze was unwavering. "No, High Chancellor. You brought this upon yourselves. You thought humans were predictable. You thought control meant obedience. You were wrong." The Horizon's fleet closed in on the Council's main relay hub. Human ships split, weaving unpredictable paths to avoid concentrated fire. Vorian barked orders, but every response was anticipated, countered, and nullified. Each failure widened the breach the humans were exploiting. On Colony Delta, citizens watched streaks of light from their observation stations. Children played amid artificial gardens, oblivious to the strategic ballet above them. Engineers recalibrated emergency systems, sending encrypted messages to strike teams. Every action was purposeful, a network of defiance against an empire that thought itself omnipotent. "Captain," Tali said, scanning incoming signals, Council vessels are attempting a full flanking maneuver. They're desperate. Elara's expression hardened. "Good. Desperation makes them predictable. All units, execute adaptive spiral. Engage and isolate the flanking ships. Human fleets moved like a single organism, responding instantly to changing variables, predicting Council movements without algorithms, without rigid orders. Every engagement reinforced what humans had always known: survival demanded creativity, unity, and courage. Vorian's patience shattered. Deploy orbital annihilators. Leave nothing intact. I will not be humiliated by. A pulse of energy erupted across the Council network. Communication grids failed, control nodes went offline. Human forces had struck with precision, bypassing brute force entirely. Council ships veered wildly as systems failed, their coordinated offensive collapsing into chaos. "Captain, relay nodes down!" Tali exclaimed. Primary command disrupted. "They're blind." Elara's lips curled in a quiet triumph. "Maintain formation. No ship fires until I give the signal. Let them flounder." Across the battlefield, human ingenuity reached a crescendo. Small, unassuming vessels acted as decoys, drawing attention and fire while larger strike ships penetrated vital infrastructure. Every calculation by the Council had been turned against them, every assumption exploited. Vorian's hologram flickered with frustration. "Impossible. How are they orchestrating this with such coordination?" Elara's voice echoed through the communication channel. "Because, High Chancellor, humans are not bound by your logic. We adapt, improvise, and unite. That is what you failed to account for." The final assault was surgical. Human ships disabled the last major relay, cutting Council coordination entirely. Energy beams went dark, warships drifted in silence, and the Aurora Nexus's systems stuttered under simultaneous human strikes. On the horizon, Elara exhaled, eyes sweeping the battlefield. "All units, hold position. Minimal exposure. Monitor for Council resurgence." Eric looked at her, awestruck. We actually did it. They're retreating." Elara's expression remained steady, but a glimmer of pride shone through. "They underestimated humans. They assumed control meant obedience. But we're not tools. We're not predictable. We're alive." The colonies erupted in quiet celebration. Not loud, not chaotic, controlled, purposeful acknowledgement of survival and triumph. Humans had survived, adapted, and outmaneuvered an empire that thought itself invincible. Vorian retreated to reassess, shaken but not defeated. His calculations would take cycles to reconcile the reality: humans were a force that could not be fully controlled, a species that thrived in unpredictability, ingenuity, and unity. Elara turned to her crew, voice low but firm. "Today, humanity proved itself. Not through weapons, not through numbers, but through strategy, courage, and the refusal to be controlled. Remember this moment. Remember what we are capable of." Tali smiled. "We've shown them something they'll never forget." Eric nodded, hands resting lightly on the console. "They won't underestimate us again." Elara's gaze returned to the void. Star systems sprawled endlessly, each containing humans who had survived the impossible. The Council had tried to suppress them, to manipulate them, to impose control, but humanity had awakened. And now, the galaxy would learn the truth: humans were not tools, not predictable variables, but a force that could not be contained. For the first time in generations, humanity was not just surviving under alien oversight, it was shaping its destiny, with creativity, courage, and unity as its weapons. And Elara Voss, captain of the dauntless Horizon, had lit the spark that would never be extinguished. The stars, once indifferent witnesses to human subjugation, now reflected the awakening of a species unbound, unbroken, unstoppable. Humanity had claimed its place among the stars, not as pawns, but as architects of its own destiny. The silence after the battle was deafening. Space, once filled with the hum of warships and the crackle of energy beams, now stretched empty and calm, dotted only by human vessels holding steady in formation. Captain Elara Voss stood on the bridge of the dauntless Horizon, gaze fixed on the distant glow of the crippled Council fleet drifting in retreat. "Tali, status report," she said, voice low but firm. All major council relays remain offline, Tali replied, fingers moving over the consoles with practiced precision. Sensor grids are disrupted, they're blind in this sector. We have a 3-cycle window before they attempt emergency recalibration. Eric, standing at her side, shook his head in disbelief. We've done the impossible. The council is reeling. Elara didn't smile, there was no time for celebration yet. Impossible is relative, Eric. They underestimated us. That was their mistake. We need to consolidate our advantage before they regroup. The human fleets began methodical sweeps across the sector, securing supply routes and reinforcing colonies. Every action was calculated, precise, and efficient, a stark contrast to the Council's rigid, reactive strategies. Humanity had learned the value of coordination without predictability, of intelligence without reliance on rigid protocols. On Colony Delta, children played under artificial sunlight, oblivious to the galaxy's shifting balance. Engineers and strategists worked tirelessly, repairing infrastructure, restoring communications, and distributing resources. Humans were not just surviving, they were building, innovating, and claiming autonomy. A communication alert blinked on the Horizon's console. Elara activated it. Vorian's holographic figure appeared, tense and flickering slightly. Captain Voss, he began, voice strained but controlled, this conflict, it was not anticipated. Your species' adaptability, it is a flaw in our models. You cannot maintain this momentum. Cease offensive operations, or humanity will face irreversible consequences. Elara met his gaze evenly. High Chancellor, look at your fleet. It drifts in silence. Your command systems are offline. Your assumptions about humans, control, predictability, obedience, they've all failed. Humanity will not be constrained by your fear or arrogance. Vorian's expression hardened. You are overstepping. The Council's authority spans centuries. You cannot. I am not overstepping, Elara interrupted, voice steady. I am claiming what you never granted, autonomy, recognition, and respect. We are humans. Unpredictable. Relentless. Resilient. And we will no longer be treated as variables in your calculations. There was silence on the line. Vorian's hologram flickered, unstable, before vanishing entirely. The Council had no immediate response. In the aftermath, Elara convened with her senior officers aboard the Horizon. Status of all colonies, she asked. All operational, Tali reported. Minimal disruption beyond temporary communications outages. Supply chains stabilized. Colonists secure and organized. Eric added, Council forces are retreating. No sign of organized pursuit yet. They're regrouping, probably recalibrating their assumptions. Elara's gaze swept over the crew, her voice steady and authoritative. Good. But don't mistake retreat for surrender. This is not the end. It's a turning point. We need to reinforce our defenses, improve coordination, and prepare for whatever they attempt next. Humanity cannot rely on luck. We rely on strategy, adaptability, and courage. The fleets continued their sweep, reclaiming sectors once dominated by the Council. Human colonies communicated through encrypted networks, sharing intelligence, resources, and tactical updates. Each colony acted as a node in a decentralized system, coordinated but flexible, a living web of resilience and ingenuity. During a supply run near the outskirts of Hell Ion Prime, Elara received a personal message from Colony Delta's governor. Captain Voss, the governor said, voice tinged with relief, our people are safe. Your fleet's intervention saved countless lives. They are inspired, ready to contribute to humanity's collective effort. Elara nodded. Tell them this, the fight is not over. We've proven the Council's assumptions wrong, but we build strength from this momentum. Every colony is part of the greater whole. Coordination, creativity, and unity, these are our weapons now. We cannot falter. As night fell over the colonies, human ingenuity flourished in every corner. Scientists developed energy shields adaptable to Council weaponry, engineers enhanced ship maneuverability, and strategists analyzed battle data for predictive patterns, not rigid rules, but tendencies to anticipate the unexpected. Humanity had turned survival into evolution. On the bridge of the horizon, Eric leaned back, exhaustion visible in his posture. We've shown them what humans are capable of. But, what's next? They'll regroup. They'll come back stronger. Elara didn't flinch. Then we'll be stronger too. Every engagement teaches us, every challenge hones us. Humans don't wait for opportunities, we create them. They underestimate our resolve because they see only numbers, structures, algorithms. They cannot measure courage, creativity, or unity. And those are exactly what we have in abundance. Tali glanced at her, a small smile on her face. We've changed the game, haven't we? Elara's gaze returned to the stars. Not just changed the game, we've rewritten the rules. The Council assumed they controlled the galaxy, but the galaxy belongs to those who dare to adapt, who refuse to bow. That's humanity. That's us. Across the sector, human colonies lit the darkness with activity, mining stations operating at peak efficiency, terraformed planets thriving under careful stewardship, and orbital hubs coordinating efforts seamlessly. Every action demonstrated capability, resilience, and ingenuity, a statement of intent no Council fleet could ignore. Vorian's fleet remained at the edge of human-controlled space, silent and fractured. Sensors barely captured the movements of a species he had underestimated for centuries. Humanity's rise was not violent, chaotic, or uncontrollable, it was deliberate, precise, and unstoppable. Elara turned to her crew one last time before initiating the fleet's jump to the next sector. We've survived the impossible. We've turned vulnerability into strength, control into opportunity, fear into courage. Remember this feeling, carry it with you, and never let anyone doubt what humanity is capable of. The crew stood in silent acknowledgement. They were more than soldiers, more than explorers, they were witnesses and architects of a new era. Humanity was no longer under the shadow of a council that misunderstood them. Humanity had awakened. As the dauntless horizon and its fleet vanished into warp, the stars bore witness to a species unbound, a species that had defied prediction and claimed its place among the cosmos. The Council's arrogance had been shattered, their assumptions exposed. Humanity would not be contained, would not be underestimated, and would never again be treated as a variable in someone else's experiment. Captain Elara Voss exhaled, steady and unwavering. Humanity was ascendant, and the galaxy had no choice but to recognize it. The era of human ingenuity had begun.